Alright, Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D. I've never seen this movie in 3D. I don't think the majority have seen this movie in 3D unless you went to the theaters back in 1982 and saw it for yourself in 3D. I don't think this movie has been seen the way it should be by the masses. I think the best way to get the most out of this movie is definitely watching it in 3D. I think Walmart sells the actual 3D glasses for this film, and I think I saw them on Amazon. You can get like a 40-pack or like a 20-pack for like a bundle or something. So I was definitely going to consider buying that because I want to get the most out of this movie. And while you're watching this film, you see this is totally early 80s 3D cinematography going on. Like, there's just scenes that don't need to be 3D, but it's just reminding you, like, hey, this is a 3D movie. Like, they're constantly holding shit up to the screen all the time, and it's just in your face, like, like simple things like a broomstick, people juggling, all that crap. So I think in order to really enjoy that aspect of this movie, you really do need the 3D glasses. Besides all of the weirdly done, cringy 3D scenes in this movie, this is the first Friday the 13th to give Jason his iconic hockey mask, and little did they know at the time that they created one of the most legendary pop culture icons in history. So let's get into it. Steve Miner returns as the director for this movie, the same one from Part 2, and this film takes place one day after the events from Part 2. It opens up with a small country store owned by a middle-aged couple named Edna and Harold, and Jason is stalking the two of them, but as he's doing this, he's stealing their clothes from their laundry drying lines outside. Instead of the overalls and the weird flannel he was wearing, now he has a nice button-down shirt, some, I guess you could say, carpenter pants, boots. I think they might be the same ones from Part 2. And then he quickly kills off Edna and Harold, and then we go right into our opening title sequence. I've always loved that opening title sequence. I think it's so incredibly corny, but it's hilarious and it just works because obviously the movie was advertised as 3D, so they made this movie as corny 3D as possible. Just the Friday the 13th and the Part 3 shootout. One goes first, the other one comes second, and they both go a little closer and back. It's ridiculous. And then everyone's name that's in the opening title sequence, it just shoots at you too, just like the opening title itself. It's hysterical. I don't know, I always love it, and I'm always smiling. And the soundtrack too. Like the theme song, this isn't like the typical, like the last two had that very orchestraic, if that's even a word. Like they had that orchestra music that's, was very, uncomfortable, unsettling music. This was different. This was like a disco, electronic dance thing going on. Really good stuff. I mean, it was hilarious. Now we meet our brand new characters all at once. Literally. So right off the bat, we meet all our characters at once as they're on a road trip making their way over to Higgins Havens, where we meet Chris Higgins, played by Dana Kimmel, who happens to be our final girl, Andy and Debbie, a happy couple that also happen to be pregnant, Chuck and Chili, the stoner couple, Shelly, the group prankster, and Vera, Shelly's blind date. We were also introduced to Rick Bombay, but that's not until they actually get to Higgins Haven. Chris and Rick also happen to be a couple, so this is the couples weekend, except for Shelly and Vera. But right before they actually get to Higgins Haven, and we meet Rick and everyone gets situated and settled in, we meet this Crazy Ralph ripoff who was just laying in the middle of the road and tries to warn them about Jason, just like Crazy Ralph was warning all the others in the two previous movies. And it just seems very odd. No one beats Crazy Ralph, but this guy holds up a severed eyeball to the right up to the camera lens, just to remind you that this is a 3D movie, and there's a lot of that.
On this omen, and go back from whence ye came, I have warned thee. I have warned thee.
Yeah, no. It definitely feels like somebody on set just went, fuck, why the hell did we kill off Crazy Ralph in Part 2? Because just replacing Crazy Ralph and refilling his role with some other crazy old man warning teens about Jason Voorhees just seems kind of far-fetched. And the fact that the guy's laying in the middle of the road holding a severed eyeball and just warning, it just seems very out there and just not, I know you're going to talk about realism when it comes to these movies, but it just doesn't seem too realistic. Like Crazy Ralph's that's realistic. Every small town does have like their crazy old guy who starts stirring up the urban legends, and they turn out to be true. Not always, but every small town usually has that one creepy guy that everyone knows to stay away from because he's going to start telling you a whole lot of nonsense that you shouldn't be hearing. So there's that. But from this point forward in the movie, this is where it just becomes not a terrible slow burn, but a slow burn. All our characters are just at Higgins Haven, hanging out, a lot of filler 3D scenes, just them talking, socializing. Shelly's kind of cool, though. He keeps trying to impress Vera by pranking, pulling all these different types of pranks across the cabin. Not just trying to impress her, but trying to gain attention and impress everybody. Because I'm getting that Shelly, since he is the prankster, he does feed on attention. And what better way to feed on attention than just pulling pranks? But it doesn't end up really going his way. People start hating him, he's an idiot. Yeah, some of these pranks are really good, especially, I know if my friends were staying at Higgins Havens, walking out with an axe in your back would be a pretty fucking funny prank. But not with these guys. This looks like a classy bunch that just want to go camping for a weekend. And then this whole movie, you're basically just waiting during the slow burn. Where the hell is Jason? But when Jason does come later on in the movie, it doesn't disappoint. We also find out that Chris, our final girl, has some history with Jason because a few years prior, she has these flashback scenes. And we see that Jason and her were in the woods and he's trying to sexually molest her. Very weird stuff. And she's having these PTSD flashbacks her entire way back up to Higgins Haven because she knows this is the area where all this went down. Very strange, but at the same time, you're also like, well, how is this going to play out later on? Is she going to get her redemption? We also don't know if it's the same guy, but obviously we're all led to believe this is Jason. But if this was a few years prior, here's my problem with it. In part 2, Jason had a full head of hair. And the events of part 2 were only a few days before this one. So Jason looks completely different. I don't know. They didn't know what they were making at the time. They're probably just trying to make some quick sub-stories to get heighten the intensity of the drama or anything like that. But it was just a strange, just sub-story they went with. But ultimately, you are hoping for Chris to get a redemption later on. And once again, you're just waiting for Jason to show up.
He ran after me and he caught me and he pulled me down to the ground. I was kicking and screaming and yelling, but it didn't do any good.
We technically get 3 more antagonists in this movie. The 3 bikers that Shelly and Vera piss off at the convenience store. It's pretty hysterical stuff because not only are we met with more 3D hysteria, but these 3 bikers follow Shelly and Vera back to Higgins Haven. And I don't know what their intentions were. I don't know if they wanted to kill them or just ruin their weekend. Because when they get there and they see there's a big group of people there, they don't immediately go right in for whatever the hell they were trying to do. They just kind of hang out and lay low in the barn. I don't know. It's just 3 bodies to rack up on the kill count. 3 extra bodies. But one thing that's cool, Fox, the biker chick, she's playable in the Friday the 13th game, which I thought was pretty cool. But they really don't do anything except they're here, they're angry, they're there, and that's it. They don't really do much. Except for almost stealing 1 jerry can of gasoline before they all meet Jason. That's really it. So after that barn sequence, we're just met with more 3D scenes, more character development, I guess you could say, as far as character development we'll get in a Friday the 13th movie. Shelly's really cool. And basically we're just waiting all up until nighttime rolls around. And then once nighttime rolls around, that's when all the fun begins. Shelly keeps playing pranks on everybody. He does one where an axe goes through his head. Everyone hates him, thinks he's an idiot. Thought that would get Vera. It didn't. He plays another prank on Vera that night where she's sitting alone on the dock and he's in a scuba costume with a hockey mask on. That's the first time we see the hockey mask in the entire Friday the 13th franchise. It was not on Jason. It was on Shelly, played by Larry Zerner. And Larry Zerner takes so much pride that he was even in this movie. He's the coolest MFer I think that ever was in a Friday the 13th movie. Just as far as how happy he was to be in one. Actors like Kevin Bacon, yeah, they touch on it, but they don't really speak very proudly of it. Most actors and actresses get their start in horror, and then they hope to, build up and go and break out from there and do like big pictures in Hollywood. Horror was very low budget and just kind of like cheap money at the time, so that's why a lot of these people were getting into it. But Shelley, cool.
This is all the exercise I need. That'll teach you a valuable lesson.
So Vera pretty much just hated that and tells Shelly off, and Shelly just sadly droops his way over to the barn and then curiously investigates the barn. Sort of how Ned did in part 1, where he thinks he sees somebody in the cabin and asks if they're okay and then enters the cabin, and then he was killed off camera. Same thing with Shelly. We know what happened in that barn earlier in the movie. We know that those 3 bikers are probably still in there dead. So when he goes in there, he's ultimately killed off camera. Vera, while this is all going down, is in the water because she sees that Shelly dropped his wallet in there. And yeah, she's pissed off at him, but she doesn't hate the guy. But the guy who confronts Vera and walks back out onto that dock is certainly not Shelly. This is the first time we ever see Jason Voorhees in his iconic hockey mask in the entire franchise.
Hey, I dropped your wallet. I'm sorry. I got it. Who are you? What are you doing? Hey, now cut that out right now. That's not funny.
I just love how Vera takes one look and goes, "Hi, Shelly," takes another look and just goes, "Who the hell are you?" It's just funny. I think Richard Brooker plays a really good Jason. He has those really menacing, broad football shoulders that looks like nothing's getting through him or in his way. There's just an iconic look that Richard Brooker had that Ted White also has too in Part 4, but there's just something about the Richard Brooker Jason that just couldn't be replicated, and it's just so iconic. And of course it's iconic. It's the first time we see Jason in the hockey mask. Now this just turns into every Friday the 13th movie. Everyone gets picked off one by one until our protagonists find everybody and then have to battle Jason on in the grand finale. Our protagonists being Chris and Rick, who have just been doing their own thing pretty much this entire movie. Shelly gets found by Chili. She thinks it's another one of his pranks, but he's got his throat slit, and he's not joking this time. And a funny little 3D kill there. He takes the fire poker out, and of course he's not just holding it up to the camera like everybody else with their stupid objects in this movie. Movie's great. I'm only trashing the cheesy 3D elements. I love the Friday the 13th Part 3. I think this is a really solid sequel, and how could it not be? All about the kills when it comes to the Friday the 13th movies. I think the kills in this movie are actually pretty solid. Vera's right off the bat is a very big one. The harpoon shot, I got to see that in 3D because I think that'll get a lot more out of that scene. Chuck and Chili. Chuck is thrown into an electrical transformer. Chili's killed with the fire poker. Andy and Debbie are killed. Andy's killed while doing a handstand, and Jason splits him right through the middle with his legs and then stuffs him in the rafters for Debbie to find. And as she's looking up, she gets the Kevin Bacon treatment right from the back. Same kill, just like Kevin Bacon in Part 1. Same exact kill, except Jason's the one doing it this time. That leaves us with Chris and Rick. And just like in Part 2 with Ginny and Paul, they are investigating. Something's not right. So they try to see what's going on. And then Rick steps outside for something, and he has my favorite death scene / favorite 3D scene in this entire movie. This is why I really got to see this movie in 3D. He has just the best scene in the entire movie. Jason squeezes his head and his eye pops out. And the way they did this, they had like a string attached and they're pulling the eye out at the same time, but you can't see the string because of how thin it is. You can totally see the string now, especially on a 4K rescan. But it's just so cool what they tried to do to just make these effects come to life. It really is cool. Now, in these Friday the 13th movies up to this point, up to Part 3, I liked all of the Final Girl showdowns in all of them. I think Alice against Pamela was cool. I think Ginny against Sackhead Jason was really cool. And I think Chris versus Jason, it might be the best one out of the original 3. Part 4 is a little different because now we start getting into a more deeper story. Chris just seemed to, she has a personal vendetta against Jason. She has history. There's a lot of more 3D elements here. But still, it's very action-packed. She ties a noose around his neck, throws him off the balcony of the barn. She finds the bikers. And the best part about this whole showdown is because he has the hockey mask, she doesn't know who the killer is. He takes the hockey mask to let her know it's me, the same guy who we ran into a few years ago. And I thought that was the coolest thing, just the fact that he wanted to get into her head mentally. And even she goes, "It's you." It comes back full circle, and yeah, you're really rooting for her because this is just what you wanted. As it's going down, one of the bikers happens to still be alive, distracts Jason for 5 seconds, and he's hacked up. And then she drives an axe straight into his head. That's where the classic axe wound comes in all the next sequels, right here on the side over here. This one doesn't, because this is a Part 3 mask. And right from that, you think Jason's dead, and then part 4 happens, but you really think she got the job done, is what I'm getting at. You rooted for her, you think she got it done, and it was done pretty well. I think, besides all the, hands out 3D, the knife slashes where he's dodging them and they're coming at you, it seems more of a personal chase. Like in the first 2 movies, Pamela didn't really have any connection to Alice. Ginny didn't really have any connection to Jason until the end, where she was smart enough to put on her sweater, Pamela's sweater. But Chris, on the other hand, she had a personal altercation with this guy, and she did not. She has never been the same since. It's been tormenting her. She's been dragging it throughout her life, and she suffers from PTSD. And now in her head, she got the job done, and she could finally live on and move on. And of course, we get one of those cheesy little jump scares like we got in part 1 when Jason pulled Alice off the boat. Well, here we have Pamela pulling Chris off the boat. And it's just, I'm not going to ask too many questions, but I have plenty. Like, how did Pamela get her head back? Why is she wearing her sweater again? All this crap. I know there was an alternate ending shot where Chris actually dies and gets her head cut off. So happy they left that out. You really wanted her to win. You wanted her to win and live and just move on from this terrible thing. I mean, because she's the only one that has a personal relationship with Jason in a weird way. Not like an actual relationship, but actually had an actual confrontation that just was absolutely hell, and it stayed with her ever since, and you just wanted her to win, and she did. She won. Other than that, I think Richard Brooker brings a great presence to the role of Jason. Like I said, I think his physical attire, to the way he moves, it's just not Michael Myers-like, but just it seems a little bit more creepy. Like in part 2, he's stumbling all over the place. This one, he's a little bit more sharper, on top of his game, stronger. Definitely stronger. He was able to pull himself up with the rope with his hand. I mean, cool stuff. And definitely Chris is my favorite final girl up to this point. Other than that, the dialogue in this movie is second grade at best. The characters aren't that fun, except for Shelley. Love Shelley, and the guy who plays Shelley, Larry Zerner, to this day takes so much pride that he was able to be in a Friday the 13th movie. And low key, because of his character, Jason got the hockey mask. He stole it from Shelley. I think Larry Zerner actually tried to keep the mask on set. I think he asked the directors and the producers if he was able to keep the mask. They were like, no. But no, part 3 is a great movie, and this is actually, like, part 2 launched Jason, the character that was going to go above and beyond. Part 3 launched the look of Jason, which is, the second you see like a retro hockey mask, the immediate thought is Jason. So that's why part 3 is so iconic as it is. So thank you so much for watching. Can't wait to get into the final chapter, because I sure as hell know that's not the final chapter. But hey, let's see what happens when we get into that one. And please like, subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.